Hello and welcome, everyone. Uh, I'm Chelsea Dean. I'm a curriculum director at TomoClub, and I'm really glad to have you all here. We have with us Dr. Cynthia Knight, who's the CEO and co-founder of Choice Charter Schools. We would, it's a pleasure to have you. We know of the incredible journey that you've taken and the incredible journey that you've really gone through and embarked on to really make this charter school what it is right now, right? I remember uh, having a conversation with you like last year, and I believe a bunch of things have changed. A lot of things might have evolved, and I'm really eager to know what those things are and how you're looking at essential life skills now, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, I would love to hear from you a little bit, and then we can start right away.
great. So we are now going into our third year of being in existence. It was a grassroots and endeavor. And we now have about 225 students enrolled grades 9 through 12. And then this year we are going to add grades 7 and 8. So yeah, we're growing and things are going in a very positive direction for us. And we're helping those kids that traditional school just isn't working for. So that's our target area, are those kids that struggle probably in school, didn't like school, dropped out, all of those kinds of things. And so we're in the process of helping them find success in school.
Right. And I was extremely excited when Avinash told me that I was the one who was going to have this conversation with you because I was eager to know what you were up to. And it's really exciting to know that you're also adding seventh and eighth grade. I remember at the beginning you were talking about high schoolers mostly, right? Like you wanted students to complete their graduation and really like achieve those particular skills that you wanted, like what you envisioned for that for your school. And that brings us to what we're going to be discussing today as well. I would love for you to really begin with what your thoughts are on this particular topic, right? When we're talking about effective or at least essential life skills for students, what do you think about it?
So when I think of life skills for the type of student that we're working for, it is employability skills. Can you live on your own? Can you budget your own money? Can you use your money to your best advantage? So just really, I want them, before they leave me here at Choice Charter School, I want them to be able to thrive on their own. So we want to give them skills while they're here and know that they have those skills, and show us that they can do those life skills on their own, that they can find and keep a job, that they can participate in society, and be a contributing member of society, as well as living their dream. I want them to live their dream too. So all of those things we take into consideration, and we really try to pay attention and listen to them about what they want in life, and then help them get the skills they need to attain that.
Right. Thanks for sharing that, Dr. Cynthia. Just to begin with, what was your reason for starting this school, right? Like what were some things that were going on in your life that you were like, okay, this is something that we absolutely need. What was that process like for you?
Yeah. So I had a daughter that went through an alternative program, and what I went with her one day, and all she had to do was fill out the paperwork. And I thought and it took her 11 hours to get it done. And I thought that wasn't really worthy work. It didn't really teach her skills that she needed. And then I worked for the Department of Education in Iowa for 7 years. And part of my job there was the at-risk programming. And there were 4,000 kids dropping out of school every year. And that number didn't change. In fact, it got a little bit higher, and now it's up to about 5,000. So I wanted to do something. They were telling us, I am not coming back to that school. Whatever's happening in school, I don't like. It's not for me. I'm not going to go there. So I did a lot of research about what these kids were saying and listened to a lot of kids. I interviewed a lot of kids, and I found that we needed to bring the education to them. For whatever reason, life had given them challenges, and wasn't they needed something different. And so that was all of those things got me thinking about how do we better serve these kids, because they deserve a quality education just like everybody else, but they are telling us by 5,000 every year, this isn't working for me. So that's really what led me to create, and I've created a lot of things. So 13 years ago, this has been a 13-year process, right? So 13 years ago, I created Iowa Net High, which helped schools with the ability. They hired my program to help them get their high school diploma. And then that bit came into Jordal Academy, which was my nonprofit school, which then created Choice Charter School. So it's been a process of creating what I think and what I know kids want, and helping them be successful. And it's been successful. I mean, kids who come to us who can't look me in the eye because they feel like they're stupid and they're dumb and they've been told they can't succeed. And then once we show them that, yes, this is doable, and we try to make it as real life as possible so they can see the relevancy of it, they then can graduate. And we've done a really good job of graduating those kids, and they are so proud of themselves, and they can look me in the eye and say thank you, and it's just wonderful, and now I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And so every single one of our kids that have graduated have gone on to college or onto a trade, or they go right into the workforce because that's what they wanted to do, and they're making a living, and they're being good citizens to our state of Iowa, which is what we really want our schools to do for kids.
Right. And what an inspiring story, first of all. I think the entire journey has been inspiring for you as well. And I'm sure for the people around you as well. I'm quite certain that this must be very gratifying as well as validating, right? When you see like the kids that you've taught, or when you see the kids, or when you see the impact of the work that you've really worked hard for, at least, right?
It is extremely, it's the most worthy work I've done in my life.
Glad to know
Yep.
that. I mean, and but glad to hear of it as well. I would love to, I mean, if you have certain anecdotes that you'd like to share with us of any child that you think, you mentioned one very key point. You wanted to provide them things that they wanted. And I'm just trying to connect the dots, and that's where the name also comes in, right? What the name of your school also comes in when you talk about Choice Charter School. Uh, I would love to understand if you have had students whom you have tried to provide what they really wanted, and how have you really done that, right? Like how do you think that change or shift took place for you?
Yeah, I would say a lot of our students do not care for group work. They don't, they are singletons, and they maybe that's a defense mechanism so that they don't feel bad when they're not chosen. They don't feel bad when they're, when their groups aren't successful. But we've really listened to them, and we do a lot of changing of the assignments and the way they show us how they know. So if in the assignment you have to write 3 paragraphs to show me X, Y, and Z. If writing isn't the target, and the knowledge is the target, then if they have a conversation with me or with our teachers, and they can show competencies, then that's what they do. If they can do it in a video instead of, in front of the class, then that's what they do. So we really listen to how they want to show us what they know, and we adjust that way. Now, they do have to write, right? Because writing is one of the skills we want kids to do. So they do have to write, but maybe not for every assignment, or not everything that comes in to a teacher has to be in that format. So format is a huge thing with kids. Timing is also. Our school doesn't start until 10 o'clock because our kids are not up until after that. And we go until about 6 o'clock at night. But we also have mentors, and the kids all have mentors who meet with them 2 to 3 times a week to make sure they're on target, to see if they're okay, to see if there's any other needs, because some of our kids come with a lot of needs. They are homeless. They are, my first student was a homeless girl. We gave her a computer. She would go to the local gas station, charge it up, and then do her work from the public library because she didn't have Wi-Fi either. So, we just try to think about, we listen to them, what are their needs? What do they need in order to have school be a priority? And we take care of those. If it's food, we find a food bank. If it's, or we get them a card to go to Walmart and get some groceries. If it's gas money to get someplace, we do that. So I think when we as a society care enough about the kids, they see that and they know that, and they respond in a positive way. I think many of these kids have felt like no one cares. And so I make that a priority here at Choice Charter School, that they know we care about them. We are constantly calling them, and sometimes we bother them to death, but they know that we are the consistent adult who is going to help them get where they want to be in life. And once they get that figured out and they trust us to do that, then they just shine. They do. They just take off and go.
All right. I think, again, very inspiring to say the least. But one thing that I'm hearing is that it gives, or at least what I'm understanding is, it gives kids the space, or at least these young adults the space to really innovate based on what their requirements are, right? Like to really reflect over what is something that they require, or what is something that they need to excel, right? Uh, of course, there are certain things that we talk about when we're talking about a very traditional schooling system where every child is supposed to do what is required of them to do, right? And just providing that sort of space, I would love to know how you do it, right? With the number of kids that you might have, how do you provide that sort of one-to-one interaction or mentorship that can enable them to really, first of all, reflect over the life skills that you want to provide to them, and also reflect over what their needs are. Because what I'm hearing
Uh-huh.
here, I'm hearing like all of Maslow's chart being spoken about here, right? Like we're talking about safety, physiological needs, all of those. I mean, it's great. It's absolutely wonderful. But I would just love to understand how you're doing it for such a big group.
I would say our mentors are the centerpiece of that. They are the ones who meet most often with the students, and they're the ones who have that relationship and talk to the kids about what is it that you need and that kind of thing. And then they just send it on to, we'll have a MTSS coordinator this year, but it was me before, and we just make the call. We just go and do. We just make it work. And the other thing is this is statewide. So it's not just a one little geographical area. We have the whole entire state. So I have people this year strategically hired in spots um, that can go out then and help these kids on a one-to-one basis. But our mentors, I would say that's what makes us very, very different from every other online school, is that mentorship, that relationship piece, that we listen to our kids and then we act on it. So we don't just listen, we act on it. So they know and they can trust if I call Dr. Knight, um, and I've had calls at 2 a.m. in the morning, that she'll get up and she'll help get things going. Now, I'm the only one on the staff that's 24/7. But I tell the kids that because, you know, we have kids that work till midnight and they might get off work and then they start school, right? Because they're awake. That's their awake time. So I've made it very clear that if they need me at 2 o'clock in the morning, they can call me 2 o'clock in the morning. I have to wake up and we'll get that going. But I don't want the adult, I don't want the adults in the world to cut off help for our kids because of that, because we're the adults and we say no, right? Because I tell you, a lot of our kids who work, that is the night shift. And so we have to be cognizant. Our society needs to be cognizant of that and then help them when they're ready, not just when school is. So school is 24/7 in our place.
All right. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Knight. I think one more thing that I'm learning from this and could be a valuable lesson even for other school leaders is how to be available for kids, right? Of course, the, the amount of commitment that you put in might vary for, it might vary for other school leaders also dependent on where they are, their context, all of that. But a very key point that I'm taking back here is to be available, right? How to not shut kids out from approaching you. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who's guiding them towards a certain goal, right? Or at least
Right.
enabling them to reach that particular goal,
Mhm.
right? And if they don't have that sort of comfort or safety to even reach out, how do we expect them to even just clarify all the conflicts that they're going through, right? So
Right.
thank you for sharing that. Go ahead.
Availability is key. And
Yeah.
our teachers, they teach 2 classes, 2 to 4 classes a day.
Yeah.
And then they have office hours. So they meet with the kids outside of those school days. So when they have synchronous classes where they're in and those teachers are teaching, and then they have asynchronous classes. So the kids can who can't come between 10 and 6,
Right.
right? Still can have their education and still can meet with the teacher. The teacher just makes an office time when the kid can meet. So our teachers are very flexible. Their schedule is very flexible. I think they like that. They can, the hours that they are teaching, the live classes are set, but everything else is very flexible and they can meet the needs of the kids better that way to do that.
All right. Thank you for sharing
Mhm.
that. Would just love to put out a question for the group that we have today. Would love to understand, like, if you all can put it down in the chat box or raise your hand or just unmute yourselves and answer. What are some skills that you think are a major area of development for the kids or the students that we have around us currently? Dr. Cynthia, you can go ahead and tell us your thoughts in the meanwhile.
Well, what have I not said yet?
You mentioned employability skills right at the beginning, right? And
Right. So we've hired job coaches this year. And I'm working with the Iowa Workforce Development group to really get into the internships, the apprenticeship programs. We're thinking more of the credentials because sometimes our kids only need 2 credits to graduate. They dropped out of school and they need 2 to 4 credits. Well, our kids only take 2 classes at a time and we have a hex. So they work on those 2 classes for about 29 days, school days, and then they move on. So we don't have them usually for the whole year. So getting them some credentials is crucial. So we're working really hard on trying to help them get those employability skills. We have a thing called Cobra Connections, and that's we had it every Friday this last year, but this year we're going to do it on Wednesdays. And in there is career exploration, talking to employers, getting those skills that they need, the employability skills training. So we'll have those every Wednesday that the kids will be participating in. So just always thinking about, and I think that's something that we have to do as educators, is we have to always think about what is it that the student needs to be successful away from us, and then give them those skills so while they're with us.
Right. So again, one more thing that I'm understanding here is how we really, again, need to focus on the requirement of the kids instead of focusing on what we would want to provide to the kids. Right. So it's all
Absolutely.
it's children first and then whatever we want to provide to them. Additional.
Right. It's student first. We have to be student centered. And in our realm where the kids have felt like they haven't been the center, they've been um, taught to instead of taught with.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Right. I completely understand that. I was hoping for some answers, but one thing that I have been thinking about a lot when we're talking about the areas of development for the kids of this generation and for the kids, I know that the context of the kids that you currently have in your school varies to a large extent, right? Like you have kids who have dropped out, you have kids who are joining in, they're moving schools, right? So the context varies quite a bit. But if you think of a very typical sort of context, I'm thinking about how students require a particular skill when we're talking about collaboration, right? You mentioned that since they're all very, they love working on they want things to be done their way because they might have gone through a space where then they've not found the results that they're looking for, especially with the group, right? And that becomes like a bias in kids in their heads, right? Now, how do we encourage that more? How do we encourage students to collaborate more? How do we encourage students to communicate better, right, without being rude, right? How do we, and these are extremely like core soft skills, right? They don't even come higher up in the ladder, but they're extremely core soft skills where we're talking about how do you become a better citizen, right? You mentioned at the beginning that the kids moving out of your school uh, are getting employed, they're working, they're getting into the trade, uh, and they're also becoming better citizens, right? They're becoming better citizens of Iowa,
Mhm.
right? So how do you do that? How what leaders need to keep into consideration when you're thinking about like some of these really, really essential skills? What should school leaders do? That's a question.
Number one, you need to listen to the children. You
Right.
need to listen to the young adults, and you need to act on that. Not just listen, you have to act. And they have to see that um, their opinions, their ideas matter. And then, when you talk about collaboration and things like that, um, in our live classes, I think we get to that. I think the kids that choose the asynchronous want to just do it on their own and get it done and be done with school because it hasn't been a pleasant experience for them. Um, that's why I like our Cobra connections, because that brings them together in a group. So they are this year we're going to group them towards their career interests so that they have more things that are alike in the group, and then work on those skills that they need um, to be successful. But I think too, I've had a group. I do an exit interview every year with all of the seniors that graduate. And one of the things they did that kind of came out of those this year was having more events where they could get together. So, um, working on school may be something that they want to do on their own and just get it done, but they do want to collaborate and they do want to get together and they do want to socialize. So we're going to plan a few more events that are on our Charterverse, and invite them more to those kinds of things that they can come and have a conversation with. And what I found in on our Charterverse, it's a metaverse. Our campus is online, and what I found is that they find each other. So one night I was on at 6 o'clock at night, and there was a group of girls, and they were talking about the movies they saw. So they were meeting up on our space, on our school space, and having the conversation. And what's cool about that is they found each other, for one. They were in classes together, and probably Cobra connections with each other. And also that on our Charterverse, you cannot get on without having permission. So I know it's a safe place for them to meet as well. So yeah, it was just kind of cool to watch that happen.
Right. So we're talking about listening to the students in terms of the approaches. We're also looking at planning more events, right? Like planning events where students can come together, they can talk to each other, they can really get to know each other. Another thing that very interesting point that you brought up was your charterverse, right? I would love if you could share a little bit about that with your audience.
Yeah, I could even show you what it is if you want me to share my screen, and we can
Absolutely.
show what our Charterverse is. Let me get it up here. It's we were first in the nation to do it, to have a Charterverse. And I'll share my screen. And what we did is it's through Work Adventure is the company that did this, and then 100 Roads created all of the images that you see. But students get an avatar and they walk through our campus, and we've created places for them to kind of hang out. Anywhere along here, there's interaction type things too. Anywhere along here, they can meet up with people. And our map, I think this is the map. Yep. So our map is based around the 6 career clusters. So we have information, agriculture, engineering, human services, health services, and business. And then the kids port out to all of these places. You can, there's a map here, and you can go anywhere you want to. We're in the admin building right now. This is where we have our library, my office, the auditorium, so we can have virtual graduation parties here. And then each of the school classrooms that they can go to. We have a fitness center, we have a PE, we have a arts and talented and gifted, and all those kinds of things. So let's see, where am I at now? So kids interact, I don't know, there. Kids interact on the Charterverse. I can walk up and have a group conversation with 2. We can lock that conversation. So it can be private or it can be open. It's just a lot of places for kids to interact and be. So you can see all the portals here, the music lab, Cobra connections, and then they can go into an area. If we port off to human services, every teacher gets to decorate their own room too, the way they want. The kids get on a Jitsi mat, and it comes up like this, like a Zoom. Everybody's in the room. Teachers can show their screens and can share all their things. So you can see this is a classroom. You can see the balloon next door. They have a pond. They have, all these whiteboards are interactive. You can put your workout on them, and kids can go to those and work on them. The teacher can go to each group if they want. This is our special ed room. Kids can meet up on each one of those mats. They can go into the balloon. Yeah, so kids get to create their own avatar, and they just interact. They like it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's no doubt about that. It looks like it looks incredible. I would love to hear the thoughts of all the participants. This is innovative, right? Like I would love to hear what their thoughts are. You can put that in the chat box. But I would love to understand, Dr. Cynthia, what was your motivation behind setting this up? Where did this idea come from that we require like a charterverse?
So I was in a group of people on LinkedIn who were starting schools, and we kind of got to talking about what would our school look like? How do we help our kids participate and get going? And I knew I wanted an online school because that's what the kids were telling me. They don't want to go to a brick and mortar place. They don't want to sit in a classroom. They don't want to be confined to a building for 8 hours a day. So I decided I needed to bring education to them. So how do we make that in an interactive way, in a safe place that we can interact with each other and they can learn and that kind of thing. And one of the gals there was Kath Phrase, and she owns 100 Roads. And she said, I want to talk to you afterwards. And so we got to talking, and she said, I want to create this for you because I think this is what you're talking about. And so we just went from there. So she created this for me with Work Adventure, and I got my staff on it, and I think they all enjoy being here. They all they like the interaction that we get from kids. They like the ability to share their screen and share the things and teach this way. And it's just worked. I mean, we started out with 80 kids, and 2 years later we have 225. So and then we're growing to another age. So I can only see it growing and getting bigger.
Right? I mean, it seems incredible the fact that, again, you heard the students, you listened to them, and then this was the innovation that has come out of you really exploring what these kids require, right? Or at least what they want to do. And I'm sure this is something that might be getting them hooked, right? At least for whatever time they're on this platform. Uh, are the students allowed to say be on this platform beyond the session, beyond your school hours?
It's open 24/7. So
Okay,
yes, they come on here. We have record of who's on here. It's really nice. It keeps track of that. And like I said, this is a private space, so you
right.
can only get in here if you have an email that we've given permission to be on.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Dr. Cynthia, for sharing this. I think it's incredible. And again, this might just give an idea to, or at least it provides others an approach to take, maybe something that they would want to implement in their schools. Maybe that would increase the attendance or engagement, right? Just thinking out loud, but definitely something that can get students moving, especially in the age where we're all playing games, right? We're all trying to learn differently, right? We're all trying to get ourselves engaged and interact with as many people as possible. Of course, everyone's personality is different, but we want that sort of social group in some form or the other, whether we're introverts or extroverts. Right. So thank you so much for sharing that. Just the last couple of questions that I did have for you, especially when we're talking about this topic. Like any specific approaches, you already mentioned about listening to others, you listening to the students, you already mentioned about planning more events. This was a great approach. Any other very specific approaches that you think school leaders need to uh, maybe reflect over to incorporate essential life skills in their school?
Well, one thing that we do is we do not fail kids.
Right.
So we're not seat time based. That's another thing that I think education needs to change. We need to not be seat time based. You don't need to wait 90 days to get a credit. It may take a kid, our talented and gifted kids are squirming in their seats. And the kids that take a little longer, They're panicking. I'm going to fail and I have to take this test. I have to do this all over again. And that's the other thing that we do that's extremely punishing to kids is they didn't collect enough points, or because I don't think very many people are onto the competency base, but competency base is really the way to go. Because if you've proven you know this, you move on and you don't ever have to come back because you just keep moving. Our education is not linear. It's you get in 90 days, if you don't have it done, then you're going to start over again. And for a lot of our kids, if we truly believe and that kids learn at their own pace, then we've got to quit pacing them. We've got to quit cutting out, having a cut time. So our kids who at the end of 29 days, if they're not done, they just continue. And the teacher keeps them on their roster and the teacher keeps teaching them and keeps working with them until they're done. But if they're done in 2 weeks, they move on to another class. They don't have to wait until the semester to start another class. So very fluid. We're very fluid with the kids. Where are you in life? We have you here and we need to get you here. And when schools can get rid of the bell and the 45-minute and the 8 classes a day, I think we'll see a lot of kids thrive and a lot of kids move faster. We've had a couple kids graduate early. Now, we're concerned about that because when you have 16-year-olds getting a high school diploma, what's up, right? And what are they going to do? And so we make sure that they have a plan. So what is your plan to do next? What are you going to do? And if they don't know, then we're going to keep them a little while longer and help them get the skills so that they do know. But if they have a plan. We have one young man who is going off to college. Okay, then off you go. You got a high school diploma and you can go. So education needs to change. And I think this is an exciting way to do it.
I hear you, especially when you're not bound by any restrictions, especially you're not bound by time, you're not bound by your age, you're not bound by what is just expected of you. I think it definitely leaves a lot of scope for growth, right? It leaves a scope for improving on what your core needs are, right? And then you automatically just go in that direction, right? And I really appreciate the fact that you're talking about competency based learning, right? Especially when they're already at that level, a child might think, why do I need to do this again and again, right? Now, one thing that is coming to my mind when I'm thinking about other school leaders, right? I think most of all, there are so many stakeholders involved in a school, right? With the number of stakeholders that are involved in a school, they're looking at the best. I mean, of course, every school leader is thinking from the perspective of providing the best uh, education to the kids, right? In whichever form they're able to. Now, with the number of stakeholders involved and with the kind of things that they're required to do, right? Like with the kind of impact that they're required to make, I believe it restricts even school leaders to think beyond that. Maybe they're thinking, but it restricts them from doing or making that thought into an action, right? Uh, One of the core reasons I believe would be just time by itself, right? The number of teachers being less. We know that all of these are problems that school leaders are currently facing. What are your thoughts on that? Because I see that your model is it's quite different from what the others are doing currently, right? Um, and there must be some reason why it is not being able to change, right? Why that sort of change doesn't happen immediately, at least.
And I would say in Iowa, it's mostly because charter schools don't have to live by all of the rules.
That's it. Mhm.
And so encouraging school leaders then in Iowa anyway, you can create a charter school within your school if you want to. I asked 5 different school districts if they would take this on and they all said no. So I think there's that fear of the unknown. So we need to be a little bit of risk taker.
Okay.
And if there's a charter way to maybe do a smaller portion of this to help your kids be successful and see how it works, that would be a wonderful place to start. So just finding a core group of people who really want to dig into this kind of work and see how it could work, and then scale it from there. So, you know, I would encourage, you know, we all have alternative school programs. We all have, you know, at risk, whatever type programs. This is a great way to get kids engaged that is very different. And I think that's the thing that I want to impress the most. This is very different than anything else they have ever experienced in a classroom, because that was not working, right? They were very clear that that was not working. But many of our alternative schools are the same thing, just in a different location. Or they are watch a video, answer 10 questions, watch a video, watch 10 questions. And that's not learning. We want kids to apply. We want kids to do. We want kids to show us what they know. And those programs don't allow that to happen. And our kids are saying, I don't like that either, right? Because they want to show us. They're intelligent young people, and they just want the opportunity to show you that they are successful.
Yeah. We have a question from
I don't know what
Fran.
step is. I'll ask. Let's see. Also saw an escape room. Our teachers made the escape room, but and we're going to try to do some things with them to get them to do things we want them to learn and earn some credits. What percentage of the time is spent on the platform doing non-activities? I would say when the kids are on, it's probably 90% class stuff and probably 10% not, where they're just having conversations and things. And thank you, Peter, for that. I am passionate about these kids. They need us. They need us to really listen, and they need us to do something different. And this was my response to that, by listening to them. And I'm not the end all be all. I wish I were. I wish I could be the panacea, but I'm not, because there's still some kids that choose not to participate once they get in. So if I could figure out how to wrangle those kids in, I would. But it is important. This is important work, and our society needs to figure out how to help these young people who are lost, kind of. But they want an education. They do want an education.
Yep. Thank you.
The platform is work adventure. So I can put that in the work. Let's see, it's work adventure. I spelled that right, yeah. Is the group, and then 100 roads. 100 roads is the group that created all of the rooms and all of the things that we did. Oh yeah, I think that would be cool, Randall. And we are going to have students do more. We don't have clubs and we don't have anything like that right now either. But we are going to get into esports, and we're going to get into more group type things and offering more groups. Right now we have we worry a lot about mental health. So we have a parenting club, a parenting session. We've had individual health. We have a telehealth connection, so our kids can get some mental health services that way. So we're trying to really figure out what are the needs and how do we do it. We have had, though, our avatars. So our little costumes and things that you can put on, our kids create those, which is pretty exciting too.
Right. Thanks for sharing that. And I think definitely a valuable suggestion, having kids to create something of their own on a platform that they're spending a lot of time on. I think it just gives them a sense of gratification that they're, a part of something that they've created as well. Thanks for sharing that. An interesting point that you mentioned about how you want your students to be applying the learning that they're apply the learning that they're taking back, right? And this is the core principle of TomoClub also, right? And it completely, like, I'm just trying to connect with what we've been doing at TomoClub as well, right? Like, the kids are not just playing games; they're really applying the learning that we want them to take back with them, right? Just because it's in the form of a game, right? And these are like video games, right? Like multiplayer video games. But these kids are not only having fun, but they're really thinking about, oh, really reflecting over what is something that might help them get better, right? What is something that can encourage them in, say, any other group that they can be a part of, right? So they're not just playing a game, right? And I think that is where I connect with your charterverse a lot, where the kids are interacting with each other because that's also a sort of safe space for them, right? They don't need to care about how they're looking. They don't need to care about what they're doing, right? In real life, that's that's something that's like almost like an ideal self that they're probably presenting there, right? And just having that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think you're right. I think the things that TomoClub has to offer would fit nicely in with our group of young people, and creating those skills
Yep.
that they need to carry on in life and to work with each other. And we don't want them to be isolated, because that's not how our society works, right? And so providing those opportunities would be great. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that was primarily it in terms of what school leaders need to take back, right, when we're talking about essential life skills. But just to collate all the thoughts that we've had, Dr. Cynthia, I think number one, like the main point that I'm taking back from this conversation is about listening to your students, right? Listening to the needs of the students, listening to their wants as well. Of course, you can't provide everything, but what is something that is in your control, right? Another wonderful thing that I was thinking about was how it needs to be more competency based, right? How assessment needs to be more competency based, how their growth also needs to be based on their areas, right? Areas of strength. Uh, and also even when we're thinking of, say, events, when we're thinking about classes, they need to be relevant to what the student requires, right? If a child has no interest in a particular area, no matter how much you try, right? They might develop a liking for it, but is it their calling? Is it something that they enjoy, right? Is it something that they're able to learn from? Is it even helping in their employability, right? So is it, say, as you mentioned, not all kids like to write, right? But they need to at the end of the day. That's an essential skill for sure. So keeping all of these different points in mind, especially for school leaders, it's absolutely empirical for school leaders to take back certain researches on the approaches that these school leaders can take for their students, right? And of course, the number of stakeholders varies. So we can't comment for each school leader, but of course it's highly I mean, it can be highly effective if they're able to really understand the needs and wants of the school, and then implement the kind of programs that we need to, right? Any last thoughts before we open the floor for questions? All right. So thank you so much, Dr. Cynthia. I think I had a wonderful time with this conversation, and I think I've learned a lot. I think one of the main things I believe I'm taking back is about listening to the students, right? So even with the curriculum that we want to provide to the students, or that we do provide to the students, it is absolutely essential for us to listen to what their requirements are, right? So just throwing them into a gameplay session is not enough. It never is, right? So thank you so
Right.
much. Just quickly, in the last 2 minutes, any questions that anyone had? Or any last thoughts? All right. So thank you once again, Dr. Cynthia, and I hope I'll get to see you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Bye-bye.
it.
Yeah, have a
Bye.
great rest of the day. Bye-bye.